The organisation Undoing Tax Abuse, OUTA, says it's now asking the High Court in Tshwane to force both the company Karpowerships and the energy regulator NERSA to release all of the financial details about the Karpowership to provide electricity. Karpowerships is a Turkish company. It's offered to supply electricity using liquefied natural gas on power ships or power barges that will be anchored at our ports. But the deal would be over 20 years, it's understood. It will cost a lot more money to produce electricity this way rather than any other way over 10 years. 227 billion, yes, that's billion rand. Brendan Slade is the legal project manager at OUTA. Brendan, good afternoon to you. What information are you looking for here?
Afternoon, Stephen. Thanks for having me this afternoon. So just to go back in time a little bit, we launched a review application against the decision of NERSA to grant the generation licenses for Karpowership. So amongst the information that we are entitled to in terms of the court rules is the full record behind the decision of NERSA's approval. So our review application is predominantly focused on the financial implication of this deal, should it go through at the end of the day, and the irrationality behind NERSA's decision to grant this, notwithstanding the fact that it would cost the country the amount that you just mentioned. So what we are doing now, it's an interlocutory application, basically arguing that the information needs to be forcefully divulged so that not only so that the litigation can continue, but also so that the public can know what is behind the financial implications.
As I understand it, if, for example, Eskom makes an application to NERSA to increase the tariff, to increase the amount of money that you and I pay for electricity, it has to provide a whole level of documents. NERSA, in its decision, provides a whole level of documents back. So, for example, we know that in its recent decision, NERSA said that Eskom was trying to generate too much electricity through diesel because diesel is more expensive than coal. That's the level of detail. What's the difference between Eskom's application and the detail, the financial information you get there, and what's happening with Karpowerships?
So the one distinction is Eskom's application relates to tariffs, while Karpowership's application to NERSA relates to the granting of generation licenses. So basically the legal right to be able to generate electricity. The information in question is of crucial importance because, first off, we need to understand that Karpowership got the bid for around 1,200 megawatts worth of generation capacity. So at the time when the bid was advertised, it was estimated or calculated at around R1.50 per kilowatt hour in generation. So NERSA, as the process went along, that price escalated through to R2.80 per kilowatt hour. And after consultation with our experts and as this matter progressed, that price per kilowatt hour has skyrocketed to R5 per kilowatt hour. And it will just skyrocket as we go along because obviously the fuel component for car power is gas. So currently there's a massive demand for gas across the world. With the escalated conflict in the Ukraine, that demand will go up even further. And as with Economics 101, the greater the demand, the greater the price. It will also be directly tied to the exchange rate. And it's very, very risky for South Africa to enter into such a volatile market while there are much more stable, viable options available to us.
In the middle of all of this, we know that the ANC, the president, are looking at declaring a national state of disaster over electricity. Now, that might, because one of the things that it might do is make it easier for government or officials to move more quickly in terms of getting more electricity generation supplies to the grid. So, for example, would that perhaps weaken NERSA's oversight of Karpowerships? Could it also perhaps weaken the Environmental Ministry's oversight of Karpowerships?
So on the one hand, that's a catch-22 situation. So it would be premature for me to now state that what would happen if a state of disaster is declared. But what I can say is that there is a possibility that a lot of the red tape may be alleviated, that NERSA may or may not have proper oversight should that time come. But as the country experienced the draconian regulations during the COVID-19 period, we are reluctant to trust any form of procurement processes which may be relaxed should a state of disaster be declared. Obviously, what such state of disaster would entail would depend upon the regulations that is also promulgated therewith.
I mean, we don't know what those regulations are likely to look like, if indeed it does happen. But I would imagine, as an organization that you say stands for trying to stop the abuse of tax, transparency is going to be absolutely vital. And we know what happened during the last national state of disaster.
No, of course, we need to be cautious of these processes, but I also think the big job lies with government to instill confidence in the South African public. We have seen the whole issue around PPE corruption, not much accountability followed through that. But if the state of disaster, should it transpire, is of a very transparent nature, certainly organizations like OUTA would make sure that proper procurement practices are followed in line with whatever regulations are promulgated at the time.
Brendan Slade, thank you, Legal Project Manager at the organization Undoing Tax Abuse. I do appreciate it.